Welcome to Light Over Heat with Professor David Yamani. As a follow-up to last week's video on signing a contract to have my book published, today I want to talk about the long, arduous process of coming to this point. If you're interested in how the sausage gets made in book publishing generally, or on this book in particular, please stay tuned. So I'm sitting down to tell this story because it's a pretty long story. I have some notes about what I want to say. I don't know how long this will go, but the process of going from starting this research project on American gun culture to signing a contract last week to have the book published has been a journey of discovery, a journey of frustration, many emotions felt along the way. On balance, I'm very happy with where I'm at. As many of you know, some of you don't, I started doing this research in 2012. I was basically doing a sociological study of defensive gun culture, what I call gun culture 2.0. And in 2018, I felt like I knew enough, 6 years into the project, to put together a proposal with some chapters drafted for a book called Gun Culture 2.0 that I sent to Oxford University Press. And so really thinking of the book as an academic writing project, as I've done many times in the past, but because I also had become a gun owner in the course of doing this work, I really wanted to have a stronger first-person voice in the book. So really putting the sociological observation out front, but also, including some of my on-the-ground personal observations. So send it out to Oxford, and the reviews come back sort of split. I think there were some people who, didn't really think it was sociological enough, that my individual voice was intruding on the project. And at that point, again, 6 years into my work, I basically decided at that point that what I really needed to do was tell a story about American gun culture that wasn't going to be restricted to just fellow academics as the audience. So I scrapped the idea of going with a university press, academic publisher like Oxford, and decided that I was going to try to publish what is called a trade book, a book for a general audience. Only problem is, I don't know how to write for a general audience. I've been writing for my professional peers for my whole career. So in 2018 into 2019, I was taking online nonfiction writing classes. I was reading books about how to write nonfiction. I was listening to podcasts about writing. I hired a writing coach to help me figure out what I was doing. And so, this was, really revolutionary development for me. Now, I don't know whether in the end I succeeded in writing a nonfiction book for a general audience, but I was really all in on that goal. And in 2019, as many of you know, April of 2019, I was invited to give a lunchtime talk at the National Firearms Law Seminar, which is held in conjunction with the NRA annual meetings. And I took the opportunity in that presentation to tell the story of Gun Culture 2.0 from my own individual perspective as a liberal professor who became a gun owner. And that presentation went over very well. In the moment, and also thanks to John Correa of Active Self-Protection, I have a video of that talk, which I've posted to YouTube on this channel, and it has, I think, over 11,000 views now. And that's not bad for a 40-minute long presentation by a professor to a bunch of lawyers. So as I got the idea of writing a trade book for a general audience, I thought, if I'm going to go all in on this project, I might as well, try to hit it out of the park. And so I thought, I want to get one of the top 5 publishers to do the book. So Simon & Schuster, Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, there's really just a few major publishers who control a lot of the, big publishing work in the United States. But that, again, different from my typical academic writing process. In order to get a proposal in front of those editors at those publishing houses, you need to have a literary agent. I have no idea how you get a literary agent. So, for a good part of 2021, I spent, in addition to working on the book itself, learning how to write a query letter, taking online courses on query letter writing, reading books about, how to get an agent. So again, big educational moment for me. Finally, in November of 2021, I had a query letter together. I had a proposal to back that up if any agents that I queried asked to see my proposal. So I sent out a bunch in November. I waited until January. I didn't hear back from any, so I sent a bunch more at the beginning of January. Waited a month. I didn't hear back from anybody. I sent a third bunch of queries out at the beginning of February. And one agent immediately responded to my query. It really immediately resonated with Don Fear of Trident Media Group. And this was, for me, amazing because Don Fear is one of the top literary agents representing serious nonfiction in the United States. They have metrics for number of deals done, value of deals. He's almost always in the top 5 literary agents in the United States. So this was, really a hopeful moment for me. But he asked me, hey, send me your proposal. I want to see what it looks like. And he's, got back to me and said, look, your proposal is basically garbage. You probably wrote that proposal based on some books that people wrote about how to write a proposal, but this is not what you need to sell your book to a top publisher in New York now. So from February into May, I spent all of that time rewriting my proposal that I had sent Don into about a 60 to 65,000 word proposal pitching the book. So by the time June rolls around, I have an agent. June of 2022 we're talking about now. I have an agent. I have a proposal. But in the wake of the Buffalo and Uvalde shootings in May, Don said, I think wisely, this is not a good time to be sending out a book that is trying to get at nuances and turn the heat down on discussions of guns. Perhaps if it was a book talking about how guns are ruining society and how guns are ruining democracy, that would have gone over really well at the time. So he delayed until later in July of 2022 to start sending out the proposal to batches of editors at these top publishers. Goes through a round, no positive responses, sort of select some imprints that are still strong imprints, but not at the very top. No positive responses from those, sort of goes down, sort of tries to find some specialized imprints or specialized publishers who do nonfiction work, maybe of a sort of niche type. No luck there. And then now we're into 2023 and he makes kind of a last ditch effort. And we got pretty far down the road with a publisher that ended up not taking the project. And I think there are certainly some editors who just think that there's no market for books on guns in general, whether they're positive or negative. There were certainly some editors who said there's no market for a book that is sort of tries to paint a moderate middle ground. And as I've talked about on this channel before, there are some people who were simply either ignorant or so opposed to guns that they couldn't consider a project that wasn't entirely negative about guns. In any event, so by May of 2023, I have 30 plus rejections, for I think really strong proposal represented by an amazing agent. And it's a moment at which I have to confront the possibility of having to tear down this house that I've already now built twice and starting over, or maybe just self-publishing the book and saying, hey, if no publishers want it, then I'll just do it myself, get it out in the world and see how it goes. Around the same time, I get a LinkedIn message from Lisa Camp, who's an executive editor at McFarland Company Publishers, which is a long-standing independent publisher of academic nonfiction works and also increasingly some more popular nonfiction works through especially their Exposit imprint. Turns out that Lisa Camp is not only an editor, but she's also a graduate of Wake Forest University in sociology and psychology, and like me, is a Wake Forest parent. So we had a lot of natural connections, and I said, hey, let me, come meet with you. I've, had some difficulties placing this book, but I want to talk to you about it so you can know what you're in for. So I drive up to Jefferson, West Jefferson actually, North Carolina, 80 miles from Wake Forest here. We have lunch, and I explained to her that I've been running into some roadblocks with, not so much the publishers who are like, hey, gun books don't sell, but the ones who didn't like the particular tone and content of the book, especially, that it wasn't, just absolutely negative about guns. And she, like Don Fear, the project immediately resonated with her. She assured me that there was no bias against guns, among the editorial team there. So I had Don send send McFarland the proposal. They liked it. They offered a contract. And again, that contract was signed last week. And I've been, for the last month, head down, trying to finish chapters, trying to revise chapters. And, right now I'll be working on reading the entire manuscript from page 1 to page 300, just ensuring consistency of voice and style, because, this book really brings together things I've been thinking about for the past 12 years, also work that some chapters I finished a year ago, some I finished in the spring, some I finished 2 weeks ago. And so I really want, consistency of voice. And I've put a lot into this project. I put a lot of years, I put a lot of resources, time, money. I put a lot of stress on my family, put a lot of stress on myself trying to get this done. And I want it to be good. I've built a house, I tore it down, I've rebuilt a house. I'm not so much worried about whether I pick the right window treatments or, the right color paint. I just don't want someone to walk into the house and realize that I haven't put the bathroom in there, or I have the wiring, miswired, or the plumbing is not installed properly. So, spending these last moments with the book, really making sure that there are no huge errors. I know that some people are going to like it, some people are not going to like it, but I'm really hopeful that it can find a market of people, whether you're a gun enthusiast, who kind of see yourself reflected in the work, if you're a gun skeptic, trying to understand why do guns make sense to people who own them, or, as I like to say, the gun curious, people who are very interested in guns, but they don't know much about it. I hope there's something particularly in there for the gun curious. And the book really does reflect my own personal gun curiosity as I became a gun owner, and also my sociological curiosity. Curiosity is at the heart of the sociological enterprise. The first principle of sociology is things are not what they seem. And that's been my experience getting into guns and gun culture, realizing that you need to get below the surface to really understand it. And so finally, again, let me say, as I said at the end of last week's video, this is a smaller independent publisher. And so what's going to be really valuable to my book finding these broader audiences is that when it becomes available for purchase, that a lot of people who have been expressing interest in the work and who've been supporting me get those pre-orders in, whether it's through Amazon or through bookshop.org or by calling your local bookstore or your local Barnes & Noble. Get those pre-orders flowing. This will give McFarland an idea of how many books to print, and if we can drive it far enough up the pre-sales list, perhaps on Amazon, it might get even greater attention beyond the networks that I have. But over the next 5 or 6 months, definitely stay tuned. I'm going to be doing a lot of platform building and promotion for the book, and hope to, as I said, I didn't hit it out of the park in terms of finding a publisher, but I am in the game. I hit a single, and I'm going to work as hard as I can with your help to turn that single into an inside the park home run for this book.